Happy Friday and happy Fridays with Fidelman. I'm Cheryl Fidelman, the Conscious Codependence Coach, and the creator and host of the Conscious Codependence series. We're doing another free one that goes out next week called What is Codependent Anger? How to identify, feel, and communicate anger in a healthy and connected way. And I interviewed 8 experts, behaviorists, authors, all about the phenomenon of how to experience and communicate anger and how our relationship, for a lot of us, how our relationship to anger has developed through traumatic events or experiences, either covert or overt, from our childhood. So please like or subscribe to my channel, and here we go. What I'm calling codependent anger could be really any kind of anger, unless it's a healthy expression of anger. Now, what I would say is the difference between a healthy expression of anger and an unhealthy expression of anger. Codependent anger would be any time our anger is filled with resentment or filled with victimhood or filled with codependence in the sense that I'm in your reality, you're leading me in a direction I don't want to go, so I'm mad at you. I'm your follower, you're not handling me right. I'm sorry, you're my follower, you're not handling me right, so I'm going to be mad at you. So what we're doing is saying, I'm not the leader of my reality, you are. And so that would be a codependent stance. Now, here's the thing, also in codependence, we don't know, I'm not talking about overtly abusive situations, but in codependence, we don't always know, is this okay behavior? Is this slightly not okay, or am I being abused? We can't always tell, and I'll use a personal example. I was abused as a child, and I wasn't allowed to talk about it as a child. So what is true when we're children is that other people are directing our reality. That is what's so as a child. We need to lead, to follow. We need to be led. So then we grow up as codependents, and we're still in a regressive state of trying to find somebody else to lead our reality. And so going back to the personal story, I was being abused, and I wasn't allowed to say that I was being abused. I developed sort of a desensitization to it, which a lot of people do. When we have unhealed trauma, we're desensitized to the impact of certain extreme behaviors. So we don't notice, is this extreme? Am I being treated right now in a bad way? Or is this okay because I can't really feel it? So it's hard for me to speak up because I can't really feel the impact of what's happening right now. I'm pretty desensitized to extreme demonstrations of emotion. So it's another thing that we're going over in this Conscious Codependent series. What is anger? It's codependentanger.com, and the link below is you could just go to that link and put your email address and get the series for free. Launches on Monday. So we're looking at how do we feel the myriad of emotions that there are to feel when it comes to witnessing somebody else's anger, when it comes to experiencing our own anger, that we can become so desensitized that we only feel 0 or we feel 100 when we're at protect and defend. We don't feel the compilation of emotions, the mixture of emotions, the tiny ones, the big ones, all of the different sensations of emotions until it's at 100. And when it's at 100, we talk about this in the series as well. For some of us, it seems like it's an access to be seen and heard if we just let it out. But we may not realize that there's an impact on somebody else when we just let it out on them. There's an impact. And that person might not have the ability to hear you when they're in shock of the energy of what you're saying. And vice versa. We might not have the ability to hear somebody when we're in shock, receiving what they're saying. So that's another thing that we'll be going over in the series, is how to communicate inside a moment of shock. And for those of us, like I said, for those of us codependents, we might be in shock and the other person isn't even really that angry. That used to happen to me a lot. I used to feel so punished when somebody was in a bad mood around me. Meanwhile, it had nothing to do with me, or they weren't even being that upset. It was just a little bit of amount of intensity or passion behind their voice, and just feel like I was being punished. And then I would go into proving that I was good and I didn't do anything wrong, and then the conversation was pretty much just lost from there, because the other person probably didn't need me to prove anything, but that's what I got automatically triggered into doing. Which, of course, is my third tenet of codependence, the three of which are the want to be wanted, the need to be needed, or the need to prove oneself. So whenever, in earlier on in my codependence recovery, whenever anybody seemed to have any sort of demonstration of something that they didn't like, I immediately felt abandoned or not wanted or not needed, and the need to prove myself to get that connection back. And then another thing that we're going to be going over in the series, so many things. It's just a wonderful series where I'm just doing my best to interview these different people who have these brilliant different angles on how to manage anger, process anger, feel anger, and that it's perhaps a massively important and could be very healing emotion. Spiritually, psychologically, physically, right? Because when we repress and suppress the anger, it could affect us in an autoimmune way and in other ways in our body, physically. In the series, we go over grief. I talked to a wonderful grief educator and counselor, Tara Nash, who we talk about, anger is one of the 5 stages of grief. And I want to say this the right way, which is why I'm taking a moment. When it comes to grief of, from the loss of someone through death or a broken relationship or loss in general, but the kind of grief where we're just powerless. Who is it that do they get mad at? A person? Anger at God? Anger at the infinite? This feeling of being powerless or defeated or not choosing that outcome where we had no choice over the outcome. And so sometimes we're not even mad at a person. We're mad at the larger forces at play, I guess is a better way to say it. So again, many different angles on anger. We talk about forgiveness. I talked to Misty Time, forgiveness expert, forgiveness in relationships. I talked to Linda Bloom, who talks about that perhaps there can be an absolute, in our human evolution, there can be an absolute end to reactivity. That we move to a place in our human evolution where we are in responsiveness. We hear, we can receive, notice what's going on in here, give the gift back of communication, that we're responding as opposed to reacting, which is often what an extreme demonstration of anger in relationship is, which is why once people get angry in relationship, they're no longer hearing each other because they are reacting as opposed to receiving, noticing what's going on inside, and then responding. We're just hitting the ball back and forth. Someone says a line of dialogue, another person says a line of dialogue. It's like just language ping pong, if you will. So we talked about the phenomenon of receiving energy from another person and then staying with what that is doing to us inside of us. And we often don't stay and sit with ourselves because we think silence means disconnection. Well, I have to say something back, otherwise there's going to be silence and there's going to be no connection. So the fear of abandonment is running the show in a lot of reactive conversations. Yeah, I think I'm going to end there, and because I'll be talking to you about anger all week next week, so there'll be plenty more. Thank you so much for listening to my thoughts, theories, and rants and my overview on next week's Conscious Codependent series on what is anger. Again, you can sign up on the link down below. It's free, and you'll get an interview a day, or 1 or 2 interviews a day next week, the week of the 15th. Thank you for listening. Happy healing, everybody, and life is now.